Welcome. Let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking the fascinating, intricate, and honestly sometimes terrifying moral framework laid out in Part 9 of the Garud Puran. This ancient text gives us an incredibly detailed window into how early societies viewed justice, morality, and the afterlife. In this explainer, we're going to objectively analyze this mythological underworld straight from the source material and look closely at exactly how earthly actions were believed to map onto cosmic consequences.
Okay, before we get too deep, we really need to define a foundational concept here. When we talk about hell in the context of the Garud Puran, which is referred to as a narak, we absolutely have to leave our modern Western ideas of eternal damnation at the door. In this text, a narak is basically a temporary holding cell. It's a highly specific mythological zone where the cosmic law of cause and effect just plays out. Once your specific karmic debt is paid, the punishment ends. So it's really less about infinite, endless torture and a lot more about precise cosmic balancing.
To make sense of this incredibly dense mythological underworld, we've organized our analysis into six main parts: the landscape of the 28 hells, sins against society, cruelty to animals, the consequences of greed, violations of dharma, and finally, the ultimate truth of karma. Let's start with Section 1, looking at the sheer scale of the underworld described in the text. The Garud Puran outlines exactly 28 distinct, horrific hells. And according to the text, these are located deep within the roots of a subterranean realm called Patala. But what's truly mind-blowing here is the hyper-specific cataloging. We aren't just talking about a generic pit of fire. Each of these 28 Nerics is custom-built with unique environmental hazards and creatures, all engineered to punish extremely specific earthly transgressions. Moving right along to Section 2, we'll see how ancient societies fiercely protected their social fabric. It is absolutely fascinating how crimes that disrupt family structures are met with intensely visceral, targeted punishments here. For instance, if you steal someone's wealth or family, you're sent to Tamisra, a realm of pitch blackness where the soul is beaten until unconscious, only to wake up and repeat the process for hundreds of years. Adultery and deceit? That lands you in Anda Tamisra, where the body is quite literally cut into pieces. And kidnapping leads to Avatani Rodin, which is basically an environment completely flooded with terrifying poisonous gas. It's clear this was a society that viewed breaching family trust as the ultimate violation. This brilliantly illustrates a massive underlying warning in the text. It really boils down to a brutal cost-benefit analysis. Take the Naraka called Tapta Surmi, which is meant for those consumed by lust and adultery. The punishment there forces the sinner to embrace a red-hot iron statue. The text is constantly weighing the fleeting, momentary pleasures of betrayal against centuries of grueling, agonizing cosmic retribution. According to the Gardu Puran, the math simply never works out in the sinner's favor. That brings us to Section 3, how the text views humanity's relationship with the natural world and animals. You might wonder, in a harsh, ancient world where survival was a daily struggle, just how severely were acts of cruelty towards animals actually judged? Well, as it turns out, the answer is incredibly severely. The crucial point here is a horrific role reversal in the underworld. If someone kills and eats animals purely for the pleasure of taste, they go to Kumbi Pak, where they are boiled in giant vessels of hot oil, experiencing exactly what their victims did. Cruelty to insects or animals sends you to Undakupam, which is a pitch-dark well filled with lions, eagles, and venomous creatures. And those who actually torture animals end up in Shul Prota, violently pierced with spears. The underworld makes absolutely sure the tormentor intimately understands the exact terror they inflicted on Earth. Let's shift gears to Section 4, the societal impact of greed, and how this system dealt with corruption. The text argues that the unnatural pursuit of wealth distorts a person's character, and interestingly, their punishments quite literally distort and shatter their physical forms. Corrupt rulers who hoard wealth go to Sukarmukam, where they are crushed and squeezed exactly like stalks of sugarcane. Lying in business or giving false testimony drops you into Avicii, where you're repeatedly thrown from a massive height of 100 yojanas, shattering upon impact, only to reform and fall again. And proudly hoarding wealth? That sends you to Suchamukam, where agents of the underworld literally stitch your body together with thick thread. Moving into Section 5, we explore the severe penalties for disrespecting cosmic and social order, known as dharma. The Garud Puran takes a famously hard line on arrogance.
It explicitly calls out actions like disrespecting your parents, acting like a religious hypocrite, insulting a guest or a beggar at your door, or dismissing your teachers. Listen, the text classifies these as far more than just bad manners. These are considered deep, highly punishable spiritual offenses that actively destabilize the community.
And the punishments are intricately designed to utterly humble an arrogant soul. Disrespect your parents or God, and you enter Kalsutram, where you're forced to endlessly run across a burning landscape made of solid copper. If you're a religious hypocrite feigning piety, you're cast into Asupatravan, a freezing forest where the leaves are actually sharp swords that slash your skin. Insult a guest, and you face Paryavartan, where birds with beaks as hard as diamonds tear your flesh apart. It's a relentless exposure to the elements, explicitly designed to strip away every ounce of earthly pride. This brings us to Section 6, the overarching philosophical framework driving all of this. At its core, the text maintains an absolute, unyielding cosmic balance. You can think of it like the universe keeping a perfect ledger. Just as horrific sins guarantee highly specific, unavoidable punishments, righteous actions guarantee peace. The text is super clear here. Those who live virtuously, who practice charity and kindness, bypass these 28 hells entirely. They go straight to heaven to enjoy its comforts. The scales are always, always perfectly balanced. Honestly, the entirety of Part 9 of the Garuda Puran can be distilled right down into this one inescapable law. Whatever sins a person commits, they must inevitably face the consequences. No amount of wealth, no earthly status, and no clever deception can outsmart the absolute law of cause and effect once the soul transitions.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. When we read these incredibly visceral texts today, were they genuinely meant as a literal physical geography map waiting beneath the earth? Or were they engineered as an incredibly powerful psychological tool, a mythological mirror designed to force people to weigh the consequences of their actions, all to ensure a more just, honest, and empathetic society? The connection between what we do to others and what ultimately happens to ourselves is a pretty profound question, no matter what era you're living in. Thanks for exploring this source material with me today.